Hi, I'm Andrea Myers. I'm an artist living and working in Columbus, Ohio in the U.S.
Where did you go to school and what did you study?
Okay, so I went to the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. I studied in the Fiber and Material Studies department. And in that department, it was very interdisciplinary. So there were artists working in all kinds of mediums. And I feel like that's where I started combining painting, sculpture, and fabric into collage form. So my process begins with the material, and it also begins with keeping an active sketchbook. So I'll oftentimes come up with a composition, or the work becomes very process driven where I'm cutting, sewing, collaging, and then the compositions grow from there. So material is very important in my work. I collect a lot of fabrics. Some of the fabrics are donated. Some of them are taken apart from garments, so there's a lot of different textures and types of fabrics that I incorporate into my work. My work is very color-driven. I'm interested in the power of color to bring the viewer's eye to kind of a concentrated moment in the gallery. So I'm oftentimes combining neon with more muted colors, and I see neon as a punctuation to the work to draw the viewer into the pieces. So my process becomes pretty intuitive and gestural as I'm working. I allow for a lot of cutting and recollaging and sewing as almost like a drawn line. So it's a very like gestural line that I'm doing as I'm sewing.
All right, I think we're good. Can you talk about how you use scale in your work?
I'm interested in using scale as a way to take up space as a female artist, but also as a way to immerse the viewer into these color fields. So as I've worked over the years playing with scale, so is it kind of more body scale that becomes more intimate with the viewer? Is it large immersive scale that feels like an expansive landscape that then transcends the space itself and fills the viewer's peripheral? So I'm interested in the power of color to really impact the viewer and become this other space that we can exist in.
Can you talk about why abstraction is important to you?
Abstraction is important to me because I see it as a way to allow a lot of space in my work for multiple viewers. Abstraction feels very accessible. It allows for any person to look at the work and imagine what it could mean to them. So maybe it's an invented landscape, maybe it's more of an emotional feeling, maybe it's just the pure color that's engaging for the viewer. But so I think abstraction is a very powerful space that's not dictating to a person what they should see, but allowing a lot of different possibilities for the viewer.
Tell me more about the series On Yellow, On Red, On Blue.
So as part of the hotel exhibition, I'm exhibiting On Yellow, On Red, On Blue. And these pieces are a little bit different than my previous works where I'm using a lot of different technicolors and combinations. So On Yellow, On Red, On Blue are more monochromatic. They're compiled from a lot of different fabrics. And so what I wanted to achieve with making these color fields of one color in the primary color set is to have like this pixelated feel of a color. And then as you're moving away from it, it becomes the solid color. So it's this, how are you perceiving it close up? and how are you perceiving it far away, and that it makes you want to get closer to the piece to see all the different squares that they're made of.
All right, cool.
Okay.
All right, can you talk about how you use scale in your work?
Yeah, I'm interested in the power of scale in terms of if it is a smaller, more intimate scale versus immersive scale. So in my work over time, I've noticed that I'm interested in the scale getting larger and larger so that it feels like a color field painting, that it feels very immersive to the viewer. So the color starts taking up the peripheral vision of the viewer so that you're entering the work and you're physically experiencing that color versus being kind of stepped back and removed from it. I also see scale as a way to take up space as a female artist. I feel like women in general are kind of conditioned to remain small and polite, but to work in like installation size scale is very commanding, and it can transform a space. And also with the power of color at such large scale, it can bring like a very positive emotional resonance that feels like joy, or kind of like just shifting a space to enliven the space with color.
Can you talk about why abstraction is important to you?
Yeah, I really love working in abstraction because it's a way to make my work accessible for all demographics, for all ages, so that I'm not dictating a certain image or something that's specifically pictorial. Rather, it's suggesting of landscape, and that everyone's bringing their own experience to the work so that they are essentially co-authoring the work with me on how they're perceiving it and then how they are interpreting it through their lived experience.
Tell me more about the series On Yellow, On Red, On Blue.
So at the hotel, I'm exhibiting On Yellow, On Red, On Blue, which is a newer direction in my work where I was working more monochromatically, specifically focused on the primary colors. So I compiled fabrics from all different sources, garments and repurposed materials, and began cutting small squares to then compile into a large color field. And so I was interested in how I can make a piece that up close feels like a pixelation of a color, but then as you're moving further and further back, the piece becomes one solid color. And so again, that shift in scale, but also where are you viewing the work, and what experience are you having with just a singular color in that moment.